All right, let's talk about a feeling we've all had. You get a new syllabus for a class, or maybe you decide to learn a new skill and you're just staring at this mountain of new information. It can feel, well, impossible. But trust me, by the end of this, you're going to have a rock-solid strategy to conquer it.
You know that feeling, right? You open up the textbook, and it's like your brain just decides to check out. One moment, you're trying to figure out what looks like a totally different language.
I mean, look at this. It's a bit of C code for a recursive function. It's super dense, and it just assumes you know what's going on. Then you think, okay, let me try the next chapter, and bam! Suddenly, you're trying to get your head around artificial intelligence and how it's supposed to work like a human brain. And just when you think you might be getting a tiny grip on things, you're hit with
This. A wall of jargon from robotics that means absolutely nothing without context. It's that classic information overload where you're so lost you don't even know what to ask.
But here's the thing. What if I told you there's a way to cut right through that chaos? That there's a system, a better way to turn that mountain of confusion into a clear, manageable path?
So, here's our game plan. We're going to walk through a three-step process. First, we're going to build what I call the Learner's Toolkit. Then, we'll see how to actually put those tools into practice. And finally, we'll talk about how this all leads to genuine mastery. So let's get started and build that toolkit. You see, the secret to tackling a new subject isn't about being smarter or having more time. It's about having the right tools. And we're going to focus on three super powerful, proven techniques that are going to be the foundation of your entire learning strategy. First up, time management. I know, it sounds a little basic, but it is absolutely fundamental. This isn't about studying more. It's about making the time you do have incredibly effective. It's about working smarter, not harder.
Tool number 2 is summarization. Think of this as your way to cut through all the noise. It's the art of taking a huge, complex piece of information and boiling it down to what really matters. And the key part? It has to be in your own words. That's the part that forces you to actually understand it.
And here's exactly how you do it. This 5-step method is your roadmap. You read it, you chunk it down into smaller pieces, you pull out the main ideas from each chunk, you write your own version, and then, this is important, you check it against the original to make sure you got it right. It's simple, but it works. And finally, we've got the real powerhouse, active recall. This is a total game changer. Instead of just passively reading your notes over and over, you actively test yourself. You force your brain to pull the information out. Every time you do that, you're strengthening that memory, making it stick. Okay, so we've got our three tools: time management, summarization, and active recall. But theory's one thing, right? Let's see how they actually work. In fact, this whole explainer was put together using these very techniques. So let's try them out on that confusing stuff from the beginning.
First, it all starts with a change in mindset. Most of us default to passive learning, just reading, highlighting, maybe watching a video. But active learning is where the real understanding gets built. It's when you're answering questions, making flashcards, or, my personal favorite, trying to explain it to somebody else.
Okay, let's start with summarization. Imagine you're reading a paper about the dangers of AI, and you come across this monster of a paragraph. It's got names, big concepts, and some pretty intense ideas. So how do you even start to break this down?
Well, you use that 5-step process we talked about. You break it down and you find the core arguments. And just look at the difference. That scary wall of text becomes 3 clean, easy-to-understand points. All of a sudden, the main idea is perfectly clear. That's the power of a good summary.
All right, you ready to try some active recall? I'm going to show you a technical table. I just want you to glance at it for a few seconds. Try to lock in one specific detail. Okay, here it is. Don't worry about what a rake angle even is. Just focus on the numbers for the different materials. Just take a quick scan. You ready?
Okay, no peeking. What was the drilling rake angle for brass? Do you feel that? That little mental effort of trying to pull up the answer? That is your brain working, building that connection stronger. By the way, the answer was 8 degrees.
Let's do one more, this time from that programming manual. Which of these are valid variable names in C? I'll give you a second. Okay, if you picked A, B, and E, you got it right. C is no good because of the space, and D is out because you can't start a variable with a number. See? This is a perfect, simple example of active recall in action.
You know, when you use these tools over and over, you're doing a lot more than just studying for a test. You're actually building a solid foundation for truly mastering a subject for the long haul.
And this right here really shows why this is so much better than, say, pulling an all-nighter. Cramming just shoves stuff into your short-term memory and it disappears almost as fast as it went in. But when you combine active recall with spaced repetition, testing yourself at bigger and bigger time intervals, you're building strong, long-term memories. You're literally rewiring your brain.
So, what's the big payoff at the end of all this? It's huge. You move information into your long-term memory, where it'll actually stay. You get real understanding, not just cheap memorization. You get the confidence to explain these big complex ideas in simple terms. And that intimidating syllabus, it stops being a roadblock and becomes a launch pad.
So now, you have the toolkit. You have a proven system to break down any subject, whether it's programming, AI, or anything else. So the only real question left is, what are you going to master next?